Army Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl making his first court appearance before a military judge moments ago in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, as the man accused of abandoning his post in Afghanistan faces court-martial for desertion. Good morning to you. I'm John Scott.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna Lee. Bergdahl was just arraigned on charges of desertion and misbehavior before the enemy. This after walking off his base in Afghanistan in 2009. As you know, Bergdahl was captured by the Taliban. He was then held for 5 years. After his release in a controversial prisoner exchange for 5 high-ranking Taliban fighters held at Gitmo, here we find ourselves with this next chapter. Jonathan Seri standing by live in Atlanta with the very latest for us now. Jonathan?
Hi, Jenna. Well, the hearing took place within just 12 minutes. Bowe Bergdahl appeared in court in wearing military uniform and a fresh haircut as he appeared before a military judge. The arraignment took place in a courtroom on post at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Bergdahl requested a combination of military and civilian lawyers to represent him. He faces what's called a general court-martial. It's essentially a military court that's reserved for the most serious offenses. If convicted of desertion, Bergdahl could face up to 5 years in prison, and if convicted of misbehavior before the enemy, he could get life in prison. The alleged crimes date back to 2009, when Bergdahl walked away from his forward operating base in Afghanistan and was captured by the Taliban. 5 years later, the Obama administration negotiated his release in exchange for freeing 5 Taliban leaders from Gitmo. Shortly after the prisoner swap, President Obama appeared in the Rose Garden with Bergdahl's parents. Supporters argue the effort to free Bergdahl from the Taliban was in keeping with the deeply held U.S. military principle of leaving no one behind, no matter the cost. But critics question whether freeing 5 Taliban detainees and risking the lives of American service members during the search for Bergdahl was too high a price. Incidentally, Sergeant Bergdahl did not enter a plea today. He also deferred a decision on whether he wants to be tried by a military judge alone or tried by a panel consisting of a combination of commissioned and non-commissioned officers. Jenna?
We're watching this story closely, Jonathan. Thank you very much. We're, in fact, going to go a little bit more in depth on the Bergdahl case later this hour when we speak with Charles Cully Stimson. He's a former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainees and a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. The ideal guest to tell us what's really next and why it matters.